welcome into this round 2 preview edition of Inside the Huddle here on High School Cube News. Brian Chimino along with Beth Long of Fox Sports and Scout.com. Big matchups here in round 2 already. Let's look at the big one in Class 8A. Last year, Loyola beat Stevenson in the semifinals as a result of a 2-point conversion with 1 minute left. Ever since then, the Patriots fans and players wanted Loyola in the playoffs, and this Saturday afternoon they got them.
Might have been freezing Friday night, but milling around on the field after, I kept hearing Stevenson's athletes say, "We want Loyola, we want Loyola." That game wasn't over yet. It hadn't been played. Nobody knew who their matchup was because Stevenson's game started 30 minutes earlier. They wanted Loyola. They got them. Everyone's excited about this matchup. It's a classic Illinois 8A matchup. I'm excited to see it. The keys, in my opinion, are getting Cameron Green back involved in this game. 1 target, he had maybe a dropped pass on top of that. He wasn't utilized, partially because it was blowing snow sideways, and I don't think that Willie Bourbon on the offense really felt comfortable throwing the ball, but that's going to have to change against Loyola, a team who has a very strong group of cornerbacks, including Matt Dowdle, who had 2 interceptions against Warren this past weekend. It's going to be interesting to see, can Loyola's defense contain Stevenson's offense? Lions did a pretty good job of containing them, but I don't know that it will happen 2 weeks in a row.
Loyola was that one defense that actually shut down Providence's offense earlier in the year, similar here and there. Also in Class 8A, Homewood Flossmoor making the big trek south, and they'll face off with Edwardsville, kind of the unknown Edwardsville.
Absolutely. Edwardsville is a 2 seed. They have had a great year. They're always solid. Biggest prospect on that team, he is only a sophomore. He's 6'5", 250 pounds. AJ Epineza. He is a Iowa legacy. His father played at Iowa. He has been making noise all year long, making huge plays, picking up fumbles, causing fumbles, making sacks. So he's definitely one to watch for, even though he's young. Now, the Harley Hampton twins for HF, both have been super explosive. They have a great offensive line led by Desmond Bland, who's a junior prospect. Harley Hampton twins, both juniors. Last week, Deontay Harley Hampton, 230 yards, 3 touchdowns, and played both ways for the 2nd time this season and had a pick as well, which is something that apparently he was most proud of on top of all of those stats. His twin brother, Devontae, 115 yards and 2 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns between the Harley Hampton twins. It's going to be interesting to see if Edwardsville can contain that.
Down in Class 7A, we have a rematch from Week 5, and it takes place between 2 Catholic League Blue teams. We're talking about Providence going up against St Rita. Providence winning the first matchup 41-27.
This is interesting because last year we had the same conversation with Richards and Batavia. They met in the regular season, met again in the state championship game. It is really hard to predict a second matchup of 2 teams that see each other so often, like Providence and St Rita. They're in the same conference. They know how the offense and the defenses run. They know how to defend them, how to run offense against them. So I don't want to say it's going to be a different outcome, but Miles Boykin hasn't played the last 2 weeks. He's had an arm injury. We don't see him in the game. That's one of the top, maybe the top athlete in the area not playing for Providence. Of course, don't want to underscore Justin Hunterford. He's had a fantastic year. Last weekend he made up for the absence of Miles Boykin, but if Providence doesn't have their complete A-team on the field, it could get really interesting, even though they're the higher seed. Nate Vavoda stepped up last week for Hunterford, had 8 targets, I think around 100 yards in the game, and it's not like they don't have other receivers that can step up, but if Boykin's not back, then this could get really interesting.
Mount Carmel in Class 7A had to win in Week 9 against Loyola to get into the playoffs, and they may be the most dangerous 14 seed in IHSA playoff history. They got the long trek south as well, faced off with number 11 seed Belleville West.
It's interesting that Carmel was a 14 seed, and I know that they didn't have a great start to the year, but when you win or die every week, you're pretty dangerous when you get into the playoffs, and that was the thing. Can they get in? They got in. Now, at this point, they're playing well. Everything's clicking. They had to. It was do or die for the whole second half of the season for Carmel. A.J. Lewis, 2 touchdowns last week. He's only a junior. He's had a fantastic end of the season, too. Seems to be their #1 running back. And honestly, it's going to be an interesting matchup. They aren't going to be at home. Carmel, plays fantastic when they're in the Chicago area, but it's still, they've got momentum on top of momentum after coming off the regular season finish the way they did.
And finally, in Class 5A, 2 schools used to winning state championships, but only one's going to be able to advance on. We're talking about Montini at Joliet Catholic.
This is one that's just a huge rivalry. It's interesting that they're meeting so early in the playoffs. The first year that I worked and covered Illinois football was that ridiculous year with Jordan Westerkamp in the state championship game in Champaign, and it was like Ty Isaac, Jordan Westerkamp, 78 to, I don't know, 50-something, thousands and thousands of yards of offense. And this game, it's not going to be quite as crazy as that, I would imagine. But there is so much rivalry between these two teams. Montini's got some top prospects. Leon Thornton, he's headed to Indiana. He's a wide receiver. Junior Tyler Milliken, also a wide receiver. If they get them firing and get them the ball, they can be special. Haven't had, a fantastic regular season. They've done well. They deserve to be where they are. But Joliet Catholic, 4 running backs that can make a difference. They're getting back to their roots too. Interestingly enough, like we said, that Ty Isaac, Jordan Westerkamp here could see more of the same with Montini's passing game and Joliet Catholic's running game. So
some big round 2 games, and before we wrap up, let's talk some recruiting news, because I keep wanting to say Gordon Tech, but it's DePaul Prep now. They have a big defensive tackle that just keeps racking up offers.
Yes, racking up. No pun intended. Raekwon Williams keeps adding offers. Just picked up an offer from Michigan State. I actually went out to watch him practice last week. Michigan State was there watching him. Looked really excited about him. He's 6'5", 290 pounds. He has offers from everywhere. His top 5 now includes Michigan State, Iowa, Missouri, Arizona, and Oregon. At the beginning of the season, it seemed like a foregone conclusion that he might not stay in the Midwest for college, but with the addition of Michigan State, Iowa, and Mizzou, he might end up in the Big Ten, which is interesting. Switching gears to a junior, Evanston's quarterback Matt Little picked up his first offer after visiting Western Michigan a couple of weeks ago. He was pretty excited about that, and that's one of those things that once a young quarterback starts getting interest, you never know just how much interest they might get because it's so early in the recruiting process.
And that'll do it for this Round 2 preview edition of Inside the Huddle. Check back next week as we review Round 2 and preview Round number 3. For Beth Long, I'm Brian Chimino. We'll see you next week.